All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Hello, Dr. Morrison. Thanks for being here today and being willing to do this interview. Um, a couple of housekeeping things. If you don't mind, if you're attending to turn off your volume and turn off your video, it'll just help with any background noise or distractions. Thanks to everyone for joining today's leadership interview, the Leadership Exchange in Higher Education. So we've got Dr. Morrison, who is the president of Trinity Valley Community College with multiple campuses. And I'll let him tell more about that in a little bit. But Dr. Morrison, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Glad to assist in your endeavor and bring more attention to what you guys do because you've been an invaluable partner to Trinity Valley.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Well, first, just by way of introduction, tell us a little bit about your journey, maybe starting from when you graduated with your graduate degree and got into higher education.
All right. In actuality, I wasn't had no plans to be in higher education. I was going to go to law school.
Okay.
I was working on my master's and it was getting ready to be done, and I had this in my mind. I was going to go to law school. One day, one of the professors walked up to me, asked if I wanted to teach a class. So that sounds pretty cool. Why not? And I did. That was in the fall of 1998, to date myself. Uh,
What were you studying at the time?
Political science, master's in political science.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, I was about 22, 23. I said, why not? And I taught that class, and I really enjoyed it, and kind of found a passion. It was a great way to engage, and I mean, it was one of those kind of life-changing things. I was like, this is something I could do. I mean, I would enjoy. And so then I picked up a couple more classes, and I started adjuncting. At one time, I think I was adjuncting for four different colleges at the same time, just trying to get my foot in the door.
Okay.
Just plain and simple, trying to find a place. No one was hiring. Of course, a lot of community colleges live off adjuncts. And
Okay.
so I did that for a couple years, teaching at a 4 year, 2 year, 2 year, an hour and a half away from some of the other ones. And then finally, I got my first full time. It was temporary full time. So I got full time pay with no benefits at
Okay.
Black River. Did that a few years till they brought me on full time. And I taught there until 2011. And
Okay.
then I been telling myself I wanted to make a move to administration. That I just had this idea that this mindset I wanted to create higher education in a manner that I thought it should be. Probably a
Okay.
little bit of youthful arrogance, you know, uh,
Right.
this
Right.
is how it should be. Um, and after a couple failed attempts of, interviewing for a dean's position, um, I was actually offered a position at another school that they liked my interview as for a dean position, but they thought I was needed some growth. They were going to bring me on as an instructor. And I was all set to do that. Then a couple days later, I got offered at Western Oklahoma State College to be the dean. So I went out
Okay.
there for a couple of years. Thought I did about a C job, average job. Learned a
Okay.
lot, and I'm sure we'll get through some of that. Learned a lot as someone that went straight from a faculty position to a dean's position. Was there for 2 years, and I moved to a large system in Nebraska. Covered 25 counties. I had multiple campuses, and so I was dean of all the academic education there.
Hmm.
And I was there for 11 months before I secured my only VP job, and that was back in Oklahoma. I think mainly because of the weather. My wife said we need to move back south.
Okay.
But I was offered the vice president's job at Carl Albert State College, kind of another rural multi-campus system. And so, you know, a lot of experience in recreating identity for the academic side of the house while learning about the other sides. And after 2.5 years, I was able to secure my first president's chancellor's position back in Arkansas at Southern Arkansas University Tech. And I know we'll get through some questions, but that was a complete, total kind of rebirth of that institution that we had to engage in. And I was there for 6.5 years and almost did not apply for Trinity Valley. I thought,
Hmm.
I looked at it, I thought it was too hard to break into Texas. I mean, no one from the outside breaks in. I won't even be considered here. I'm at SAU Tech, even though that we did some amazing things. I said, you know what? Why not? Great, looked like everything was great. Strong school, great reputation. Of course, my child knew everything about the cheer squad
Okay.
already.
Okay.
Uh, and I put my name in the hat, and for some reason they selected me. And I guess I'm 2 years, 7 months in as we speak right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a great sketch of your past. And let's go back to the Western Oklahoma State. 2 years, you give yourself a C. Talk to us about that experience. What was that experience like as your first time dean?
Well, I think I never quite understood how uh, the angles in which people work people in dean's position. I mean,
Okay.
a dean's position is probably one of the most difficult positions on a college campus. You're an advocate for the faculty, but you are an arm of the administration to, you know, introduce policy, procedures, processes, and ensure everyone's compliance while
Hmm.
advocating, but ensuring what needs to be done is done. And I think I was just raw, just learning, going, learning about decision processes. You know, the one thing I think I kind of kept always to the forefront was, and I still keep the forefront, what's in the best interest of the students, despite
Okay.
the administrative side, despite the faculty side. What is in interest of the student, you
Right.
know, and how do we bridge the two sides together while focusing on the students and make sure the communication, everybody understands that, sometimes there's reasons we do things that are completely out of our control. State requirements, federal requirements, you name it, so be it. Do it. Let's move forward, focus on the students. I just think I was just kind of raw that uh, how sometimes groups and stuff jockey for positions, how there's kind of misunderstanding and misperceptions from one side to the other, and just kind of learning how to better bridge that. And like I said, I think the best bridge is that is, does this benefit our students? If we can't say yes, then you know we need to do some self-reflection. Let's put our egos aside, our interests aside, and put the interests of the students. And I think
Well,
that's a can't lose kind of situation.
let me ask, can you remember, I know it's been a while, can you remember any kind of anecdotal situations where you advocated or implemented or fought for something that you later looked back and said, man, my motives weren't necessarily right?
Uh, Probably a few. I mean, few trying to, you know, when changes were being made, kind of, you know, take the brunt of, instigating a change. I don't want to get into detail. They might have been
Yeah.
personnel changes and things like that.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful, but maybe took the spear, the tip of the spear, kind of, that's my job is if a change needs to be made, how to initiate it, create it, and move forward. Um, that's stuff that you can't always get prepared for. It's hard to be prepared for that. Uh, but in the end, I always kind of look back and say, was the institution better off
Uh-huh.
when changes were made,
Uh-huh.
and changes in direction or philosophy? And I always kind of felt like the institution was better off, despite how it might unfolded, then the right thing was done. At Western, we went through a difficult time with HLC and accreditation. That was something I came to while they were at kind of at the beginning point. HLC started looking into some practice and stuff. But one thing I kind of pride myself on to my very last day, I was working for that institution, preparing them to hopefully be a better institution once through that. To the point that my last day at work, my vice president finally came in and says, "Jason, we got this. It's time for your next kind of adventure." And
Nice.
and but I always felt an obligation to make sure an institution's better when I leave than versus when I arrive, and some
Uh,
great friendships at that institution I still have to this day.
um, I want to remind the group here online at the end, we're going to have time for some Q&A. And if you have a question, just type it in the chat and that chat will come to me. I can see those. So feel free to type in your questions as we go and I'll start to work through those at the end. Okay, so tell me about Carl Albert State College. You mentioned
Okay.
creating an academic identity.
Well, one thing higher education always runs into a problem is stagnation and
Okay.
complacency. Higher education is extremely guilty of this. Things start working and people just kind of, hey, it's working, let it go, it's fine. And I'm thinking the same thing. And Carl Albert was a wonderful institution, large support, healthy institution financially. Even when we faced during that 2.5 years, we faced that we had to cut almost 40% from our budget because a downturn in the economy and going through that process and making difficult decisions and things like that. But a lot of times there were not program changes. Programs were not necessarily aligned with what was needed, the assessment process, learning outcomes. We actually rewrote every single course learning outcomes in 1 year.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, I was only there for 2.5 years, but we identified issue. I had a wonderful associate vice president who is now the vice president of academics now there. We set off with the task as a small office of three of us, initiating with our faculty and division chairs, and actually completed a complete rewrite of learning outcomes for every single course because we were not assessing the way we should be assessing. We were not understanding what a learning outcome really meant. And that's you'd be surprised in higher education how some of those things people don't realize that their learning outcomes don't meet different levels of understanding and they're not measurable and things that and you can't grow as an institution if you're not able to kind of decipher and reflect on what are you offering the student, is it working, and is it helping them achieve their goals.
Mhm.
And we created a curriculum committee. We never had a curriculum committee at the institution, and they were expecting me to be the one to kind of drive the curriculum. I said, nope, it's your job. So we created a curriculum committee. I told them, I said, it's your curriculum. You mess it up, you're the one I'm coming to talk to. So enjoy it, because it is their curriculum. They're their ownership. They have ownership of it. And I
Right.
said, you need to make, and it was great how they looked and they reflected upon each other's programs to ensure their programs were meeting what was needed and were producing what they were trying to produce. And
Mhm.
they did that themselves. And 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 same thing when I left there and became a chancellor, we had to go through the same thing. Learning outcomes, scheduling, assessment, all those things that we sometimes think are pretty simplistic in higher education. We had to go and restart from the beginning. Uh, we did this initiative, red light, green light, yellow light at all of our programs. Who's producing? Who's not producing? Who's completely almost on death's door of a program? How did it get there? What's impacting it? Can it be salvaged, or do we need to kind of focus in a different direction for certain programs? Complete analysis, and they did that of each other's programs, and they started
Okay.
holding each other accountable. And I think when you get to that moment, you can move an institution forward because it's not being dictated, it's being organically driven by the ones that are the boots on the ground, so to speak, for doing that. And that's for all operations. I remember being at Tech and sitting down, just going through the schedule and going through the schedule, and I finally said, "Someone tell me how can someone take more than 9 hours?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I've looked at this schedule every sort of way possible. I don't see how a single student can take more than 9 hours." So I put them all in a room and said, "Y'all need a block schedule." We were a smaller institution. I said, "Y'all need to create a block schedule,"
Hmm.
and they did. Immediately, our head count stayed kind of flat, but our credit production erupted.
Right.
And we know head counts for show, credit productions where you get paid at. So and so it kind of created a change there. Just the mindset, how we do things, work together, see what's going through in each offices, make sure programs are not competing against each other. You know, you can't have everything at 9:30 and 11 and everybody's off at 2. Uh, somebody's going to have to do an 8 o'clock class. Somebody's going to have to do a 2 o'clock class. Because if you want both your programs to survive, you'll work kind of together
Hmm.
in order to maintain that you get the load that you would like, and the others get the load that they would like as well.
So, thinking about kind of this academic identity, both at Carl Albert and then at Tech, what what did you see were some of the root causes of program stagnation and program ineffectiveness? What are some things that stand out?
Uh, Bare minimum, allowing for the bare minimum, allowing for complacency. Uh, I'm going to get paid no matter if I got 20 students or 10 students. Um, why should I have to be the one go out and get the students? Uh, kind of, and I don't fault the individuals because when they don't get the support they need, they kind of
Right,
get numb themselves.
right,
And so if they're not being invested in and encouraged and pushed, because pushing is an act of love too.
right, right,
Sometimes we
right.
think pushing someone is kind of mean, but pushing is an act of love, not being pushed. And that is higher ed is notorious for that. Like, well, it's just a down year. I only have 6 students. Oh, yeah, that's still the same trend. I got 5 students. And before you realize you don't have any students. You got to
Okay.
go back and reflect, why has it happened? Has there been changes in your programs that you're not meeting, the standards of the workforce or transfer and things of that nature? But I think when you have bare minimum expectations at the top, you will get bare minimum expectations everywhere
Okay.
because there's no desire or excitability if it's not expected. I mean, I'm a firm believer. My leadership style is based on one terminology: expectations.
Okay.
Everybody has expectations. And pretty soon, I don't have to establish any expectations because everybody else has their own expectations to move the institution forward. And when they have their own expectations, you're amazing how quickly an institution can turn around because they're all
Hmm.
striving for the same thing. They're holding themselves accountable. They're holding themselves to high standards. They're pushing themselves for more. And I don't ever have to say a word.
In the past, when you're trying to bring that culture of expectation, what have been your approaches when you get pushback by certain individuals or certain areas of the college? Because I'm sure that's inevitable.
I just blow through it.
What does blow through it mean practically?
If you're not on board, I'm still moving forward.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not concerned. I mean, this is the vision. This is where we're going. This is for the betterment of the student. This is betterment and growth of our institution. We are heading forward.
And are there times where you have to let people go? Are there times where people resign?
Always. And that's the difficult part because
Right.
sometimes when that happens, it's not because they're bad people or they failed. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes people get put in places that they're not ready for, they don't have a fit for, they don't have a true understanding of, and that's unfortunately that's the responsibility of the people that put them there.
Right.
You know, a great responsibility is making sure you put people where they can be successful.
Hmm. Hmm.
And a lot of times we have a tendency to kind of overstretch and put
Hmm.
people in a position and then don't and do not give them support. And then eventually you know, it becomes apparent that they're unable to be successful.
Right.
And it's not that they're unable to be successful long term. Sometimes they could be in a position where they were unsuccessful, then it becomes where it doesn't matter what they do, you can't change the tide. And
Hmm.
so sometimes it's what's best for that person is to give them if you give them a chance to go somewhere and
Hmm.
start fresh and anew
Hmm.
and be successful. Learn from what kind of created where they were and how that happened. Learn from that and kind of avoid those barriers and moving forward. And they can be successful somewhere else, or they may realize they weren't truly happy, but they felt like they were obligated because they were there,
Right.
and they realized, man, this is not really what I anticipated, but you can't get out. I
Hmm.
mean, that's just, sometimes you can be in a position where you can't get out because the getting out, um, I mean, you might not have anywhere to land, so to
Hmm.
speak. And
Hmm.
so I think
And so,
we got
I,
to do a better job in preparing people
yeah.
overall in leadership to understand what they're getting into
Yep.
and to really make sure, are you, is that what you want? Are you chasing a perception of something?
Right. A title or something like that.
Yes.
And that goes back to your point earlier about pushing people as an act of love, because if we've allowed someone to quote unquote rot on the vine, and it finally comes to a head where we have to let them go, and like you're saying, it might be hard for them to land somewhere. Whereas if earlier in their career, if we'd have been more honest, there might have been more options for them at that level than 10 years later.
Hmm.
Um, what what have you seen? Um, and then after this question, we'll kind of keep going in your journey. But it takes courage to lead the way you're describing, to have a vision and to execute and move forward, even if there is stagnation or pushback. In your observation, generally, what do you think it is that prevents a leader from leading in that way?
Self-preservation.
Okay.
I mean, uh, probably greater intellect. I might be too dumb to worry about that kind of stuff, and I just do it. Uh, I mean, I think a lot of it is self-preservation. I think so many times you're taught, oh, don't rock the boat, don't make any immediate changes, and honestly, it's not a philosophy that I've really embraced. I find comfort in change.
Uh-huh.
I find comfort in creating, in kind of this, light your hair on fire kind of mindset. I find greater comfort in that. And so it's just kind of my style, but some are, hey, I got here. I want to hang on tight. I'm going to play it close. But you're,
So what would you say?
most of the time you can find find that the institution is craving for it. They're waiting to be unleashed.
Okay. What would you say like to that mentality of light your hair on fire, let's go change the world? Um, what would you say to the objection that, man, Jason, that's going to burn everybody out?
You can pace it as after you get started. I mean,
Okay.
like I said, I think in both situations that I've been at, be the president chancellor, I think there were so many people just aching to break loose.
Okay.
Ideas, creativity, a true understanding how processes work. And I think you can have that immediate just boom and let it go and let people get fired up and get, as I say a lot of times, get some wins,
Hmm.
and you get some wins, you get more excited and it's easier when you have a lot of wins and you take a L, get back and win again and so forth. And I think as you do that, I think organically you start finding a pace, you
Okay.
know, um, and you find and you recognize everyone's pace. And
Okay.
because I mean, some things do take longer than others. Some can be short term, some can be more longer term fixes. But I think what you're doing is you're creating more energy sources.
Yeah.
Versus just having one energy source, you got 300 people as an energy source. And so if
Yes.
you got 300 people as an energy source, even when one's a little bit tired, you got other
Right. That's
energy
right.
pushing and helping and carrying them along, till they kind of get refocused or recentered. And I think that's kind of my philosophy is that you get everybody energized and you're not relying on one source of energy to do everything.
Mhm.
And as you do that and you get the right people in the right positions with the right knowledge and know-how and expertise, they kind of continue the feeling of that energy. Even when you do have to accomplish a lot of things in a short period of time, I think people understand it's going to get us closer to our end goal.
Okay.
Let's do it now versus slow walking it.
Okay. Well, we've been reflecting on your past, some of the things you've learned. Let's kind of focus on the present for a little bit. So, 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, you started interviewing it for TVCC. As you came to this college, what what did you see that needed to be touched in a certain way so that the school could go to that next level?
Well, let me hit on some of the extreme kind of positives. Great identity, great brand, very talented people, um, excellent community support, uh, very physically sound. Resources are available. Um, the people and I told the faculty and staff this. I guess it's been over a year or some ago. Well, it was actually during my first year, second convocation. I apologized to the faculty and staff because a bare minimum mindset was allowed to be established. And when a bare minimum mindset is allowed to be established, they were let down.
Hmm.
They were not given leadership. They were not given focus. They were not given a vision. They were not given empowerment and encouragement to flourish. Well,
Hmm.
that's the leadership that does that.
Hmm.
And when you create a bare minimum mindset, you know, it becomes just a job.
Yep.
You clock in, you clock out, you go home. It'll be there tomorrow. The resources are fine. Although enrollment was plummeting, had been plummeting, resources, the taxes are coming in good, tuition's falling, but we're still okay. Everything's fine.
Hmm.
And that's unfair to everybody. I don't know who wants to live a life of seeking out the bare minimum in their life. I mean, I
Hmm.
think it comes down to a personal level. Yeah, I think people want to seek opportunities, seek excitement, seek advancement, and seek growth. And then you reposition the student into all that. We're
Hmm.
doing all this so the student can seek excitement, growth, and
Right.
opportunity and
Right.
success.
Right.
And you create the mindset because I'd rather you move quickly and make a mistake than not move at all.
Right.
We can fix mistakes. I mean, we got that.
Hmm.
Those things are fixable. But I'd rather us move quickly, create a momentum,
Hmm.
and 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 that starts at the leadership position. Be excited for what you're doing. Be something for people to emulate. And
Hmm.
you know, hopefully most of the time positively. Sometimes
Right.
there, sometimes the other side comes out. Uh,
Right.
but mostly emulate positivity and the end goal is we want to be the very top of what we do. We want
Hmm.
to be the best of everything at everything that we do. And we're not going to be complacent. We're not just going to settle. We're not going to say that's good enough. It's going to, everything we strive for is, I, I, I don't want to say perfection, but because perfection is unattainable, but I feel like if you strive for perfection, you get excellence.
There you go.
I mean, if you're striving for something and you reach excellence, and then you say, what's next? And you push the excellence and you push it and push it, everybody around you gets better.
Hmm. Hmm. So there were a lot of strengths and a lot of good things going for the college. It sounded like maybe just a renewed sense of excellence needed to be infused. So I wanted to ask you, how do you dance that difficult dance of preserving something from the past, preserving core aspects of a culture, of an institution, and progress toward um, the next step?
I think those sometimes can be some dangerous words. Preservation, the preserving the past. I'm a big believer the best way you honor history is by keep making history.
Okay. Tell us about that.
I mean, if something has had such success, the best way to honor that is keep having more success.
Okay.
Because if you keep living with the success that you have, pretty soon you're gonna be like the Dallas Cowboys and haven't won a Super Bowl in 20 something years
Right.
or longer. I mean, sorry, Jerry Jones. I'll,
Right.
I'll put your name on a building if you want me to. Uh, but you know what I'm saying is if you keep living like, look, we were the greatest team in the 90s.
Right.
Well, we're not in the 90s.
Right.
Culture change, people change. So I think you understand where you've been and realize the best way to honor that is to get it somewhere else, to
Okay.
keep moving it forward, keep reaching new heights. Because I don't want to think anybody, let's say you had a glory time, anybody is sitting back then going, well, I'm sure glad the institution hasn't grown since I've been there.
Right.
I mean, if first off, they're doing that, wow, that's embarrassing. I mean, I think we all want to look back and say, the institution, wow, look what the institution, because you were a part of that.
Right.
You were an infrastructure. If you elevate someone's infrastructure as a launching pad, they're going to reach new heights. So when my time comes to the end, which will be, in the coming, the years ahead, my time will come to an end. I want them to say, wow, look where we're able to launch from now and what
Mm-hmm.
we're able to achieve from this point forward versus thinking that we had to start way back here to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in the future. I think you recognize your strengths, our history of our strengths, our identity, some of our programs, our athletic brand, um, and some of our individuals that carry that institutional knowledge. Utilize that to get you further.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know how many people walk in life that walk backwards to get where they're
Mm-hmm.
going.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're so busy staring back at the past, you might get run over by a bus.
Mm-hmm. Let
You
me let
know?
me let me throw out a concept to you. Tell me how it sits with you. So one of the principles we have at our organization, Express Post Training, is we just simply say hands off, meaning as an individual, my hands aren't on any one thing and I don't own it, right? I'm a steward and a servant of our organization. And I see a lot of times leaders, managers, tenured at one time, maybe very successful people, they want their own name associated with that thing. And they don't want it to go on without them because
Mhm.
their personal identity is in that program or in that department or whatever. Um, but I think when we say no, hands off, meaning it's not yours, like you're there to serve well for a season, but it's not yours.
Mhm.
Tell me how that resonates with you.
I think it's absolutely, this institution is bigger than an individual.
Right.
Our purpose is bigger than individual. Uh, my job is to help all the individuals reach their maximum potential. And then
Mm-hmm.
when my time comes, fade off into the existence. I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather be here one day than the next day they're looking for that little guy. Where'd he go? I mean, because you know, maybe there was a time my arrogance probably said, yeah, but I think as I grew and got mature and I realized it really not about me.
Right.
You know, it's about, a foundation and all those, I'm at that getting to the point of my downside of my career. My career is going to be, I mean, I'm at that point where the years are, we're going to be counting down the years versus counting up the years.
Hmm.
And so counting down the years, things that are important to me is who are we elevating? Who are we inspiring? Who's hungry? Who's got the drive of high expectations and motivation to kind of carry that forward, you
Hmm.
know, to be the next kind of cycle of greatness,
Hmm.
and that will probably do greater things than me as an individual could ever imagine. Um, but no, I think it's when my time comes to the end, I just want to walk away and be it I go do another endeavor or be at retirement at that stage. I don't know. Uh, I want it to be established, and entrenched that this is a fast moving ship of great opportunity and for people to take great pride in. And
Hmm.
and then they're part of the next legacy, so to speak.
Hmm.
We don't want to let, history, sometimes you have legacies that have died and people just reminisce. I
Hmm.
want them just to be the next continuation of that legacy, the never ending, that this dynasty doesn't end, so to speak, if we're going to use like an athletic term.
Hmm.
But that people are so fired up about it, they don't want to be the ones that let it down.
Right. All right. A couple more questions, and then we'll go to the attendees. So attendees, remember to type your questions in if you have them. A couple more questions. Talk to me about from that president's role, that relationship with the trustee board.
I think it's about creating a vision.
Okay.
They have to see the plan. They have to obviously the fiduciary responsibility is one of the single most important roles of a board of trustees. That's their primary responsibility is the fiduciary responsibility of an institution.
Hmm.
And the relationship is outlining how the institution can move and grow by being responsible and being a good steward of the resources. And as an institution, we've had a lot of ground to make up because we
Okay.
have allowed things to decay. We allowed our facilities to really deteriorate at an enormous uh, position, or they're telling us 25% of our buildings should be torn down. Uh, 25% are okay, and the other 50% need critical maintenance. So 75% of your buildings needed something.
Uh,
And I think what you got to do is you got to show out the plan, show the numbers, show it how it matches up. You know, this is our end goal. Here are the key performance indicators. Graduation's up, our funding formula's up, our enrollment's up. Things that show and demonstrate to the board these actions are working,
okay.
and always keeping abreast that we are hitting our KPIs. We're hitting what we're supposed to be doing. And then you also share the soft side of the stories, the single mother that's life has been transformed, or someone that you were help able to go to class because you got them a gas card, because those are equally as important as just data. We get so heavy on data, but sometimes the soft stories are equally as important, that shows, kind of reinforces the data of success.
Hmm.
And I think just being transparent that way, that here's the plan, this is going how we're going to get here. What are concerns? Are there any tweaks that you envision? Or, a lot of times board members have historical context. What are some
Right.
historical contexts? And how can we kind of reassure that we as an institution are going to be the best stewards of the
Hmm.
resources that the board has allocated to us to operate the institution.
Hmm. Hmm. Good. Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity just to have some brag moment here. What, as you guys are making these changes and elevating your game across the institution, what are some of the programs or initiatives that you're excited about that are going on
Uh,
right now?
I'm probably the worst person to ask this because one of my big flaws is we accomplish something, then I'm like, okay, next. And so a lot of times I forget things. Uh, uh, but I think the financial stability of the institution, how we've strengthened that, the investments we've made in all of our facilities across all the campuses, we've handled things like a DOE issue head on, resolved it. You're well aware of this because you were an instrumental part in coming on early when I got here as a trustworthy person with the faculty, bringing you on board to give me a truthful and fair analysis of
Hmm.
what you're seeing as an
Hmm.
external person.
Hmm.
Jason, this is the information and data I collected. Acting on that,
Hmm.
putting those things to rest, making sure we're making the decisions that build up morale, and build up support and investment, creating training opportunities for our people as far as professional development, creating new programs, uh, taking programs that were started poorly and readjusting and creating strength in those programs so they can be successful. Launching our second bachelor's degree in teacher education, working on our third bachelor's degree, you know, strengthening our athletic programs through our scholarship support, renovating our fine arts building into the Music Education Center with the help of the Lilly family and creating an endowment for scholarships, softball field that's looking out my windows, getting close to being done. Um,
Nice.
I mean, the people at Trinity Valley have they've got a lot of W's. They've won a lot because they're the ones that have done it.
Right, right.
They are the ones that have been the people that have made it happen.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I can tell you, I've never experienced an institution that has had as much success as the people at Trinity Valley have had because they did it. They knew, they saw it before many other people saw it. They saw it before people were even willing to recognize that it was an issue. You know, losing money, hemorrhaging money with programs and things like that. They knew it. They knew it
Hmm.
all along,
Hmm.
but they were finally given empowerment and opportunity to make a difference. I
Hmm.
mean, I just had this conversation earlier today with our accreditation. I have been blessed with some of the most talented people to have around me in my career. I mean, super amazingly talented people. And then the next generation of people that are coming up that are in kind of mid-level manager, there's a lot of wealth of talent in those people.
Hmm.
And so we keep kind of investing in that and growing that. This institution's got a long, long history. I'll bring that word history in of success in front of them.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and I am so excited what everyone has accomplished because they've done it. They revamped their programs. They restructured, organizations and departments from how we advise people to getting, our enrollment process and our operations and how we do the budget and working through that process to our facilities. You name it, we've touched it.
Yep.
Um, and so, but it was that credit goes all to every individual that's been part of it because
Hmm.
it's their identity, it's their fingerprints.
That's great. That's great. Okay, we've got a few minutes left here. If you have a question, type it in. We can ask Dr. Morrison. We'd love to hear your questions. I'll give you all a minute to type those in.
It might
That's,
be easy on me.
it's kind of quiet right now.
I know. Uh,
Or if you prefer to ask your question verbally, just unmute your mic and ask a question. That's fine as well.
I might have put them to sleep.
I doubt that. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go pursue excellence.
You want to go run it? Let's go run a hill.
Let's do it. So, um, I got a question.
All
What
right.
what advice would you give a dean, a VP, that type of role? What leadership advice?
Learn everything you can about all the roles, the responsibility. Learn as much as about the complete operation of the institution and be willing to do it. Just, I think sometimes we think as we grow and we get certain levels, well, I don't have to do that. Be willing to do every job that's needed to be done. I didn't break up ice last week because I think breaking up ice is a fun thing to do.
Uh-huh.
It was needed.
Okay.
Do what is needed, you
Okay.
know, and give a. Now, I will caution you, I do not encourage people to embrace my complete approach because I don't think my complete approach sometimes is healthy for people. Because I believe what I do is supposed to be, and this is just for me, a total self-sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
I think my purpose and existence on this earth is to sacrifice every ounce of my being so someone else can have an opportunity, be
Mm-hmm.
it a student, a coworker, a staff member, that if I can give everything I have and they don't have to have the burden or the losses or the stress, the grief, then I feel like maybe I've earned my purpose in life.
Okay.
I don't think that's necessarily healthy, uh,
Okay.
but that's kind of been my mindset. I mean, that I'd rather to take on their burden, and if a decision has to be made, I'd rather it fall upon me than
Mm-hmm.
it falls negatively upon someone else
Mm-hmm.
because their career is going to probably last a lot longer than mine. And if I can take that off them, then they don't have to live with replaying those decisions in their mind. You know, constantly, did I do the right thing? Was that the right decision? Constantly replaying it and replaying it. If I can
Mm-hmm.
take that from them, then I feel like that's kind of my burden to carry is 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 that.
Okay.
I think there's probably a healthier way to do it, and people that are way smarter than me and way better leaders than me have figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel a calling to take the pain of others so that they can enjoy their success and their growth and their advancement.
That's great. Okay. Any other questions out there for Dr. Morrison? Well, Dr. Morrison, thank you for taking time. It's been very inspiring. This was recorded. I'll send a recording to everyone here, and for those that we invited who weren't able to make it, we'll be sending out a recording. But Dr. Morrison, thank you for your time. It's a privilege to work with you in your institution, and um, keep up all the great work. And we're cheering for you, for the whole school, for everyone involved. And it makes sense, kind of y'all's tagline right now is "Home of Champions," right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I can see where that comes from for sure.
I think it's a mindset that people have embraced that no matter what you do, what endeavor, have a champion mindset.
Mhm.
And, if you come up a little short, you come up a little short.
Mhm.
You're further along than you would ever been if you hadn't tried. So I mean,
Exactly.
I think that's the key is, because you are going to come up short some days, but if you have a champion mindset, you'll take the next shot, so to speak. You'll take the next chance, the risk, and then the next opportunity. And we're blessed at Trinity Valley. We have some great people. I mean, very intelligent people, and and I think, as we say, what's next? Well, we have a list, and we're going to keep going, and then we'll
Yeah.
say what's next when that list is done, and we'll keep pushing, uh, and we'll keep, hopefully growing people and helping people reach their end goal. And
Mhm.
I appreciate you because your organization has helped us in a lot of leadership training. That's been amazing. A lot of positive feedback. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes bringing someone in
Mhm.
to give a new perspective helps us as leaders go, all right, you have someone really talented. They're not in the right fit.
Mhm.
They would
Mhm.
flourish if they're in this position or this position and things like that. And or they need a little extra guidance or support and things like that. And I think so. What you guys do is in higher education, where we sometimes find it difficult to take the advice of others,
Mhm.
you guys do an amazing job in helping institution grow.
Well, we appreciate that. Well, Dr. Morrison, have a good rest of your day.
Yes,
Everyone, thank
sir.
you for attending and be on the lookout for our next webinar in a few months.
Yes, sir.
All right, bye-bye.